Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to our bi-week edition of the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. With us in just a few minutes will be John Borton, senior editor of our Michigan Bible, the Wolverine Magazine. Before he joins us, let's get it started as we always do with my view from Section 17. It's the midway point of the season, and let's be honest, most of us never imagined we'd be 6-0 at this point, did we? In the first 6 games, we've accomplished some things none of us expected this year. We have won not just one, but 2 big games on the road in very hostile environments on back-to-back weeks. That alone is a huge accomplishment for this team. We are one of the top rushing teams in college football. Cade McNamara is doing more than just keeping the seat warm for J.J. McCarthy. And then there is the defense. I thought we would have to win some of these games in shootout fashion because our defense just would not be able to stop opponents. So far, I am very happy to be wrong. Mike McDonald and his staff are utilizing our talent in some very creative ways. It appears our defense will be able to at least make everyone we play work hard to move the ball and get points on the board. Hallelujah for that. The next 6 weeks will include road trips to East Lansing, Happy Valley, and big home matchups with Indiana and Ohio State. And let's not forget Northwestern next Saturday. In those 6 weeks, we'll find out if we can make the jump from being very good to a great team. My guest today says he sees a 10-win season for Jim Harbaugh and this team. He also thinks it's possible we can win more, but that will take a supreme effort on some Saturdays from this team. It is possible, though. Up next on our bi-week edition of the show is John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine. So stay with us. Here with us on our Game Day segment this week is senior editor John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine to take a look back at a great game in Lincoln on Saturday and talk about a bye week and what's next. John, great once again to have you back on the show.
Well, good to join you, Mike. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and certainly easy to talk about a lot of things going on with Michigan athletics these days, including the program that probably gets more attention than any other.
Much easier with a happier fan base so far. You know, Saturday night in Lincoln, what a roller coaster ride, John, especially in that second half. Winning in that atmosphere, and it was crazy after trailing for the first time this season It really told us a lot about the grit and determination of this year's team, didn't it?
No question about it. And now that it's done, now that you've gotten through it, now that you've survived it, it might have been the best thing that could have happened to this team. You might not have thought so at the time. Certainly Michigan fans that were deep into the night and wondering if the Wolverines were going to be able to hang on and come back after they took their first deficits of the year, would be able to survive and win and advance. But it was really quite a night. You thought when it was 13-0 at halftime, Michigan looked not dominant, but in control in terms of, I mean, you hadn't seen Nebraska put the ball in the end zone, hadn't seen them score. You're looking at, okay, this is going to turn out to be a 30-13 game or some such. And then all of a sudden you had all the fireworks in the second half. You get Michigan nicked for some big plays that we hadn't seen a lot of out of opponents against the Wolverines. And then you're hanging on and trying to come back. You see your quarterback, starting quarterback, throw his first interception of his career, and then he has to come back and shake that off, guide the team on a drive. Just a real back against the wall performance late by the Wolverines. But I mean, everybody talked about the fact that, okay, they're going to face adversity at some point. How will they react? They couldn't have reacted much better after things got to the point that they did.
Cade McNamara, as you mentioned, just threw his first pick of the year in that game. And even after the game, in the last couple of days talking to fans, I still get this, Cade McNamara is a game manager, someone who is manning the controls until JJ is ready. But if you're paying attention, he's becoming much more than that for this offense, isn't he?
Oh, I really think he is. You're looking at a guy that makes the right plays and puts the ball in the right place. That interception the other night was certainly an aberration in terms of what he's been able to do all year long. He's done a great job of reading defenses, understand that he also hasn't been sacked, I think, but once or twice all year long. And it's a situation where he has really been in control and been what this offense has needed. I get certainly the love for J.J. McCarthy, and there's nothing wrong with that. He is going to be a great quarterback at Michigan, I believe. They see him throw those lasers, and he does have a stronger arm, I would say, and maybe a more pinpoint arm on the long balls than does Cade McNamara. But there's a lot more to being a quarterback than just those types of throws. I like what Michigan's doing in terms of getting J.J. McCarthy more and more snaps in meaningful times. They're incorporating him into the run-pass game, and certainly they're making sure that he can step in if he needs to, and having two quarterbacks ready. But, remember this, we talk about a game manager. The last time Michigan won a national championship, it had a game manager as quarterback with on the bench the greatest quarterback of all time. So it happens.
The running game, again, was solid on Saturday night. I know a lot of fans, or some fans, I should say, were nervous after the Wisconsin game. But even with a lot of different faces getting playing time in that offensive line due to some injuries, what's becoming more and more evident that Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum are really two big-time backs in a deadly combination, aren't they?
No question about it. And certainly the running game, it's been tougher to put up those 300-yard games and be as dominant as they were early once you hit the Big Ten. But that's just going to happen. You knew that was coming. But those two have been really, really good. You've got Haskins, who has the size and the toughness and still the agility to do what he did the other night, to hurdle an individual. A lot of times you'll see when you see somebody hurdle someone else, it's tough for them to get their stride back, and they'll go down shortly after that. To see him do it and make another 20 or 30 yards out of it was very impressive. He just embodies the combination of toughness and elusiveness that you love to see in a bigger lead back. And Corum, he can do it both ways. He can run the ball. He caught several passes. The quickness is there, and this is a guy that has taken some real hits in the last couple of weeks. He has his own toughness that allows him to do what he's doing. So got to give credit to more than just those two. They're getting a lot of help downfield, blocking from the wide receivers, the tight ends, and of course it starts up front with that offensive line. But really, really impressive job by those two.
Well, you're right. The downfield blocking from the receivers was really good on Saturday night for the most part. And as we know, Roman Wilson didn't make the trip on Saturday. Ronnie Bell out for the season. But Cade spread that ball out really well, got a lot of people involved in the passing game, which is a good sign for the next 6 games, isn't it?
I think it is. And it gets right back to Cade McNamara making the right plays. He's not picking out a favorite. He's not, okay, I'm very comfortable with this guy and not with this one, and so I'm looking for him. He's going through his progressions. He's delivering the ball to the open man, and he's delivering the ball in such a way that if his intended target does not catch it, nobody else can. We mentioned that one exception when it was a bad read on his part and didn't see the defender coming up. But other than that, he has been very, very good with the football, and like you said, really spreading it around, keeping a lot of people happy, and more than that, moving the offense as it needs to be moved when they have to go up top with the football.
Todd Blackledge has mentioned this the last couple of times he's been in the booth. He said that, what Cade McNamara is doing when he puts the pass where only his receiver has a chance to catch it, he said that is a skill. He doesn't think a lot of fans really appreciate that is a talent by itself.
Exactly. I mean, you'll see a throw drop to the turf, and it's just kind of, oh, well, that was off. But what is not noticed nearly as much as it should be is the fact that, okay, the receiver had a shot at it in that situation, and nobody else did. I think that's a big deal, and that plays directly into one interception in a half a season, which is just absolutely terrific ball security. And to think how much that has added to Michigan's ability to win up in Wisconsin, to win this last game in a extremely hostile environment, to be able to take Washington down at night on your own turf. I think that you cannot understate, or you cannot overstate, rather, how big that's been for the Wolverines in terms of the success that they've had to this point.
As Bob Ufer used to say, John, sometimes you have to tip your hat to the opponent. And before Saturday's game, I had a sneaking suspicion from what I had seen of Nebraska that we were going to be in a dogfight. The Huskers, it seems, are so close to breaking through. They can't get out of their own way, making mistakes. But that is a darn good football team, isn't it?
It has a lot of strong elements. It's got a defense that is very, very good. It has got a quarterback that is elusive and can make plays, as we certainly saw out of Adrian Martinez, one of his better performances with 3 touchdown passes, and he ran for 1. And he just really, really good. And think about how badly Nebraska wanted that one.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming off a couple weeks off of a loss at Michigan State where you were you were outplaying the Spartans, you were beating them, you had them basically, and then you make the one big mistake. You send everybody to one side on the coverage for what should have been a directional punt, and unfortunately for Michigan State, it was directed the exact wrong way, and there was absolutely nobody on that half of the field. They get Michigan, a ranked team at home. This is going to be the breakthrough game for Scott Frost and the Huskers, and that crowd was on go. Just absolutely. I had people that were down on the stadium floor saying as loud, as enthusiastic as any whiteout in Penn State, as a blackout in Iowa or any Ohio State crowd welcoming Michigan in. Welcoming, I put in air quotes. It was all set up for the big upset, and Michigan was able to hold strong and fight that off, and that's no small accomplishment.
Well, John, let's talk about that defense for just a bit. Very good first half, and then we saw them struggle in the second half. As you said, they got nicked for some big plays. Obviously, Nebraska made some adjustments at halftime. In the end, though, they made the big plays when they needed to do that, didn't they?
No question about it. Brad Hawkins, you look at the play that he made, that was a game saver and a game winner, because you look at the way Nebraska had moved the football. I really thought when they got the ball late, it was a bad situation for Michigan, because all they had to do was drive down and get a field goal themselves to win that game. And instead, the defense stacks up Adrian Martinez, Brad Hawkins. As he says, they've been drilling in practice. If a runner is slowed or stopped, next guy in comes and rips the ball out. And he was determined to do that, did so, scooped it up himself, and that set up the win for the Wolverines. You can say what you want, and Adrian Martinez has chosen to say that he thought that the play was over. Well, Pop Warner 101 says play to the whistle. Mm-hmm. And, that's what Brad Hawkins was doing. But you're right. There were several big plays that helped Michigan to win that game, including on defense. And, yes, they need to take a long look at the types of things that Nebraska was hurting them with, because others will try them. But it's an opportunity also for Mike McDonald's crew to grow out of that second half.
Well, John, as well as the team has played, we know they have to be better in the second half of the season. And, my way of looking at it is offensively, I think we can be. I think this offense is still, in a lot of ways, a work in progress and has not hit their full stride yet. Do you get that feeling too?
I do, and I think that the components are still coming together. You saw guys in and out of the offensive line, for instance. They are growing their depth there out of necessity, because you had guards getting nicked up and getting replaced, but the guys that came in were doing a really strong job. You've had a revolving door of sorts at wide receiver, with a couple of key guys getting hurt. And this bye week will do nothing but help Roman Wilson in his attempt to get back. The buzz that I've heard in the background has said maybe Michigan State. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But, you've got a new guy like Dalen Baldwin coming in as a transfer and has provided some really big moments. I think he's getting his feet under him, and Cade McNamara is getting more used to him. And we've talked about the running game. I think there are more plays to be made even out of what they're able to do. So I would agree with your assessment. I think there's more to be seen out of this offense than what we have at present, and that'll be necessary. I have put a great emphasis on Michigan's defense this year as holding them in games and giving them chances to win. But there will be times, like there was on Saturday night, that you just can't hold the door back completely, and then your offense has to come through. Offensive guys were saying, hey, it was our turn to step up, and they did.
I think Coach McDonald, it's fair to say, has surprised most of us with how well he's been able to fit that defense together after 6 games, or through the first 6, I should say. But, man, do we have some big ones coming up. So when you look at that defense, knowing who's on that schedule in the next 6 weeks, what would you say your greatest concerns and positives are for this defense?
Let's start with the concerns. I would say at times the cornerbacks have been a little bit exposed when they're – I think they've been in much better position to make plays and to have a winning effort under Mike McDonald, just because they've been a little bit more protected. But when they have been isolated, they have still had those moments where it's you kind of hold your breath. the flip side of that is this defensive line is way, way better than a lot of people were expecting, actually. It's held stronger. You've got younger guys coming along and learning and doing their jobs, and certainly you've got guys like Aiden Hutchinson providing not only inspiration but great play and great pressure on the quarterback. It's a stronger front seven, even, because you've seen the linebackers step up. The way Josh Ross has played has been somewhat of a revelation. He looks a step quicker. He's diagnosing so much and doing a great job. So I think the front seven is better than expected for sure. And you have to keep the pressure on, and you have to have those cornerbacks in position to be able to make plays, and they need to hold their own in the second half, because you will have offenses that can create some havoc, most notably Michigan State and Ohio State.
Well, it's been an interesting first half of the season in the Big Ten. Plenty of surprises in both the East and the West. And, looking back at Saturday night, even though Clifford went down for Penn State with them leading 17-3 on the road in that crazy place at Kinnick, you have to give Iowa credit for coming back. The Hawkeyes, though, look like the real deal, don't they, John?
They do, and they're really solid. And I think that program is just year in, year out. It's a challenger. They're tough. They're awfully hard to beat at home. I will say this. If Clifford doesn't go down, I saw the first half of that game, and I 100% believe that Penn State does pull it off and wins that game. If Clifford doesn't go down, because that was night and day. When he went out, they simply could not come up with any kind of a consistent offense. But, hey, Iowa took advantage. To their credit. They came back, and they did what they needed to do. I think Iowa is clearly the best team in the West. I do not know. I'm not convinced that they're the best team in the Big Ten, because you've got several contenders in the East that are going to beat each other up for the right to eventually play the Hawkeyes in that Big Ten championship game.
Over in the East, that biggest surprise team so far, to me, has been Michigan State. The offense, we never expected it to be explosive as it is. The defense, though, when you watch them, is it's average. It's a bend but don't break kind of a defense. But they are playing well, and they look like a team that just keeps gaining confidence every week, don't they, John?
Well, yeah, and I think it's the type of team that has greater potential than a lot of teams to get better throughout the course of the season. And the simple reason for that is you're talking about 14 free agents. I mean, Mel Tucker rebuilt this roster from a terrible team last year. I think that's something that Michigan and Michigan State shared in common. These were not good teams last year. Jim Harbaugh talked about how thin Michigan was. Well, certainly Michigan State, they had guys running to the transfer portal, and people were pointing at them and saying, wow, sinking ship. What they weren't seeing was that guys were running to the transfer portal as well to come to Michigan State. And it's a completely different roster in terms of some of the key players and key components, which means, okay, you might have some hiccups in the early parts as they're getting used to each other, all of these guys. But, hey, they can play, and it's obvious that they are getting better and better as the season goes along. That is going to be one heck of a matchup in a couple of weeks, when what I believe will be a undefeated Michigan and Michigan State bang heads up there in East Lansing.
I don't know. I haven't looked at the history of the series yet, but have they ever played each other when they're both ranked in the top 10?
Yes, they have, and I know it happened a few years ago. Can't remember the year, but it has happened because they made a big deal about it at the time. I would say it's within the last decade. That'll be one to send us scrambling to the record books and find out exactly the last time that was and how often.
it would be fascinating and exciting if they are both ranked in the top 10. I think Indiana has a tougher test having to go, Michigan State, a tougher test having to go on the road to Indiana. But the way they're playing, seems like Indiana's unraveling right now. They have a good chance of both being undefeated. So we'll wait and see on that one. Down in Columbus, though, a lot of hand-wringing after the Oregon loss. But with that offense that they have and the talent on the offense rounding into shape, just putting up huge numbers week to week, they look as dangerous, maybe more so on offense than any team in college football, don't they?
Well, especially on offense. They depend on just burying people with a flood of points, leading the Big Ten easily with averaging 48.5 points per game put on the scoreboard. That's a full 10 points more than Michigan, which very respectable at 38.5 in second place in that category in the Big Ten. But absolutely right. Ohio State is starting to just run over people. We'll see if that holds as they get into certainly they're going to face some of the Big Ten's tougher defenses in the back half as well. They have their own loaded back half schedule, including one that everybody has circled in Pennsylvania and Ohio. That would be when Penn State goes to Ohio State. Penn State's season really depends on whether or not they have Clifford back for that one. That'll be absolutely huge. But you're right. Ohio State has an offense that is capable of just running over people, and there will be defenses gearing up in a big way to slow them down enough to give teams a shot, and that includes the team that's going to play them in the final game of the regular season.
Final question before we let you get away, John. Before the season started, many of us thought, 7-8 wins were possible for this Michigan team. Expectations had changed, though, because of the 6-0 start, and that's what happens. And I know when we talked before the season, you were optimistic, a little more optimistic than everyone else at the Wolverine. You were thinking 8 wins would be possible, maybe 9. Have you seen enough of this team yet to think, hey, they can beat anybody left on the schedule if they keep improving?
Well, first of all, you have a great memory because that is exactly what I was saying before the season. I think I was looked at as the wild-eyed optimist. But now you look at 6-0, but you counterbalance that with these enormous games in the back half, Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State. I think that Michigan definitely gets to 9 wins, and you could have had somebody said that in the middle of the summer, you were guaranteeing 9 wins. A lot of people would have said you are absolutely crazy, but that's good. Good to great is another matter. I think this team will get to 10 wins because I think it'll win at least one of those big 3 games that we were talking about. Do I think it's capable that the Wolverines are capable of winning any of those 3? I absolutely do. It will depend on various circumstances. Penn State at home will be no gift whatsoever. Michigan State will be so on go for that one. And Ohio State has time to get better on defense, but it's a scoring machine. Mike McDonald will have to show that he is much more ready for the types of things that Ohio State will throw at the Wolverines than the previous 2 Michigan teams have been as far as readiness. You can't, if Ohio State comes anywhere near 62 or 57 points, it's going to be another one of those long afternoons where you just kind of shake your head. I don't think that's going to happen, but how much can you cut that down? How much can you hold Ohio State to say a high 20s, low 30s type of scoring afternoon? That would give Michigan a chance to win. And so I'm not ruling anything out. I think you'd be foolish to do that for this team at this point, given what it's already done. But I would say I think it will win at least 10 games. Anything from there on will require a tremendous effort from this team, which I think they're capable of, but there are going to be some really, really good teams on the other side of the line.
Well, the fan base can take a breath and enjoy this bye week, because we'll have to strap it on the next 6 weeks. It's going to be quite a roller coaster ride, so we're looking forward to it. Here with us on our Game Day segment this week has been Senior Editor John Borton from Wolverine Magazine. John, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for being, again, so gracious with your time, and we look forward to that next visit.
I appreciate it, Mike. It's always good to be with you, and when you have a season going like this, it's just fun, because you hear Michigan fans talking about the Wolverines everywhere. I very much enjoyed it.
On Quick Hits today, Jim Harbaugh said at his presser on Monday that the bye week comes at a good time. There are several players, especially on the offensive line, that just need a break. Jim said the time off will benefit several other players too, as they have injuries that, while not serious, do need some healing time. So this weekend we can relax and watch other teams play, and that will be good for our nerves too. Next week, we begin the second half of the season with Northwestern visiting the Big House. Many fans are already talking about the game after that, though, which is a short bus ride to East Lansing to play Sparty. First things first, even if Northwestern is having a down season, and they are, we need to give them their due and then take them to the woodshed. It's what good teams do if they want to have a great season. Next week, we will be back on our regular schedule. On Tuesday's Game Day show, our guest will be beat writer Austin Meek from The Athletic. Then on Thursday, we'll hear from the radio play-by-play voice of Northwestern football, Dave Ennett. So make sure you join us. Enjoy the bye week, everyone. There will be plenty of great games to watch, and none of them will fray our nerves. Have a great Wolverine weekend. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Until we meet again next week, take care, and as always, go blue.
Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!